This is Eat the Rules, a podcast about body image, self-worth, anti-dieting, and intersectional feminism. I am your host, Summer Inanen, a professionally trained coach specializing in body image, self-worth, and confidence, and the best-selling author of Body Image Remix. If you're ready to break free of societal standards and stop living behind the number on your scale, then you have come to the right place. Welcome to the show. This is episode 324, and I'm back with Felicia, the body relationship coach. This is part 2 of our 2-part discussion on how we're navigating the evolving relationships with our bodies. And in this second part, we talk about the tools that we lean on to support us through body image challenges, how ableism and the fear of losing our health influences our relationship with our body, and what it's like to realize that you look like your parents. You can find the links mentioned at summerinanen.com/324. I want to give a shout out to Sarah P, who left this review. I found this podcast while searching for tools to help improve my body image, and it definitely delivers. Summer is so well spoken and has opened the door for me to a whole new way of thinking about my body and my relationship with food. I love that she links other valuable resources with every episode. I have already learned so much, and I'm so excited to continue to learn and grow from it. Thank you so much for leaving a review. You can do that by going to Apple Podcasts, search for Eat the Rules, click ratings and reviews, and click to leave a review, and do it on Spotify if you can't do it on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your this show. Where do you listen to the show? And you can subscribe too. That always helps. If you have the financial means to do so, you can support the show via Ko-fi. That's ko-fi.com/Summer Inanen. Make a monthly contribution for as little as $5 a month to help keep the show on the air. And you'll get access to my free mini course, Conquering Negative Body Talk. You can get all my other free resources at thebodyimagecoach.com, including the 10-day Body Confidence Makeover, as well as the Body Image Coaching Roadmap for providers who work with people who may also have body image struggles. I'm super excited for the second part. Hopefully you checked out the first part. If you didn't, you can find it. It's episode 323. And this is a continuation where we dive deeper into some of the stuff that helps us and what it's like to look like our mothers and how ableism influences our relationship with our bodies. So check it out. Hi, Ivy. Happy to be here with you again.
Yes. Hey, Summer. Glad to be back.
Yeah. So you can listen to our earlier recording. We'll both link to it, but we talked about our experiences with aging and the beliefs that we had about aging, as well as the positive side of the aging experience that we've both had. And we wanted to pick things back up again because we felt like we had so much to talk about. One of the things we wanted to talk about was what it's like to look more like your parents as you age. Is that something that you've experienced, Ivy? Do you look like one of your parents a little bit more?
Yeah. Yes. I'm laughing because this is still something that I'm still like making peace with. It's just like so strange to me.
Yeah.
I remember like the first experience when I had my hair a certain way, usually when it's like down and full and like curly. I look in the mirror and it's like, my mother is looking back at me, and my mother is, a magical person. It's not one of those things where it's like anything bad. It's just interesting to look in. I don't think what it is? I did not have that before. And it sort of felt like when I looked in the mirror, Ivy's looking back. And then it was sort of like, I looked in the mirror, it's like, oh, mom is looking back. So that was just a unique experience to go through. What about you?
Yeah, it's a little strange. I look exactly like my mother. And people used to say that when I was young, and I was like, I don't know. I don't see it. I don't see it at all. And now I think it was probably, maybe just like three or 4 years ago, where it was like a picture of my mom and I together. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, we look exactly the same. And so my mom's an amazing person, and she's very loving and supportive as well, even though sometimes we do have a bit of friction there. But But it is weird. And it is weird because I've heard her disparage her appearance a lot too. And so that's a strange experience. So I feel like sometimes it's a bit of a shock. Like for me, when I notice it, it's a bit of a shock. And then I can also, find like I can embrace a side of it. Like this is like, the essence of her. And there's something really kind of special about that in terms of keeping that alive and part of the legacy, and even maybe find compassion for it, because I watched her kind of disparage her appearance, and so to be able to be like, well, I'm going to undo that, I'm really working on undoing that sort of generational cycle there. But I do know for people, I think that could be really hard. I think it could be hard, especially if like if you don't want to look like your parent because maybe they weren't very good to you. And so I think that could be a very confusing experience for somebody.
Yeah, I will say in transparency that I had a complex relationship with my mother. And it's something that I worked through in therapy and I still continue to work through. So I think that's also what made it kind of jarring. Part of what I worked through in therapy was understanding my mother as being her own person, right? Being an individual and not just her being my mother. So that helped me, right? Before I even got to the 40s and I started realizing that I looked like her, it was sort of like, at one point she was a young girl. She was a young woman. She was figuring things out because a lot of times we can just think of mothers as just sort of like, oh, that's my mom. She was here to take care of me. But when you think of a mother as an individual, person and like having her own challenges, her own journeys and all of those things. And so even talking about, like our mothers and their bodies and sort of like how they felt about their bodies and how they communicated that to us. I think, like you said, my mother, well, I know that my mother did impact my body image a lot. I first started dieting with her, went to Weight Watchers with her, was on all these different diets with her. So I did do a lot of work in healing my relationship with my body by finding my own individuality, right? And defining like, how do I feel about my body and what does body piece mean to me and how am I going to accept my body and not move in the same way? So it's jarring when you look in the mirror and see that image looking back at you. And even if it's a person who seems like maybe you experience this still too, that even though they're aging, if our mothers still are disconnected with their bodies, right, or still at war with their bodies, and you see their image looking back at you, because that image does represent certain messages from them that we've received or we've learned, right? So that can be really complex.
It can be. Yeah. Yeah. And I think just like normalizing that is a challenge and a pretty common one, I think, and that it can bring up a lot of different feelings and emotions. And especially when you've worked really hard at just trying to be your own person and have your own identity. And then you're like, wait a minute, I look like this.
Yeah. And it can feel like seeing those messages looking you in the mirror, right? Whatever those messages that you got from your mom. So I think that's where having those body tools can be really important. I know when I talk to my clients, we talk about like, what are your body tools that help you in those complicated moments? Like, what is it that you can lean into when certain emotions are activated, right? Or certain thoughts are activated around your body. Like maybe that's a good time to journal through things, or voice record through things, or go back over your affirmations that you have written about what your relationship with your body is and what you've agreed to with your body. Because seeing that maybe image that reminds you of things that are more judgmental can kind of, be activating, and you can go back and ground yourself and be like, okay, this is what I believe, this is what I know, and this is what I've agreed to with my body.
Yes. Yes. I love that. I love that. I feel like it's one of the things we were going to talk about ourselves is like what are some of the tools that we use personally? I know you just mentioned, journaling there and some other practices. Are those things that you lean on personally? Or like, what do you find helps you navigate moments where you feel like maybe that relationship with your body is not as compassionate as you'd want it to be?
I do journaling sometimes. To be honest, I'm a yapper, so
Yeah.
I love to talk. So, I do better with voice recordings, actually. This is like the beauty of, technology. So just taking up my phone and just talking about what I'm feeling, and it just helps me get it out of my body, right? And sometimes I'll save them, sometimes I'll erase them, just depends. But that has been tremendously impactful for me, like especially being a person who is more of a words person. Movement works for me. It can be gentle movement like putting on music and dancing. It can be like walking. I'm also a nature person. I would say nature comes second after yapping for me. For me. So, plant, like I have all kinds of plants, as you can see in my house. So going and doing that, doing herbal work, getting into, the garden and stuff like that is tremendously grounding for me. And to be honest, it helps take that hyperfixation off my body too. So if I'm in that moment where it's like, oh, I'm picking at things and things are like really crowding my thoughts and I'm feeling overwhelmed, it actually helps move that hyperfixation off so I can breathe, ground myself, and come back with more clarity. Like, you know what? Okay, that was a moment. Here's what I remember. Here's what I believe. Here's what I've committed to in my body. And then let's keep going. What about you?
I love that. I love that so much. Yeah, I feel like mine's similar. I feel like engaging in activity, like kind of like I find that if I'm stewing over something or I start to sort of notice myself spiraling, like there's a couple things that really help. One is like getting outside, I find, and just like going for a walk, like you said. And fortunately, I live around a lot of beautiful natural places. And so just, like noticing the flowers or the water or the mountains or whatever it is. And I find that like can really shift my nervous system, which then shifts my thoughts. Like I think a lot of times we sort of battle with our thoughts and we're trying to change our thoughts, but if we can just kind of shift our nervous system, that makes our thoughts like gives us new perspectives and can help quiet some of those thoughts. So that's a big one for me. And I think like other things that I always come back to is just really trying to be compassionate with myself and really trying to go through the process of like, well, it makes sense why I feel this way. Like I've had these experiences in my life. I've internalized these beliefs and these messages. And so it makes sense that I'm tender to these particular moments. Like if I find myself comparing myself to somebody else or feeling inadequate, like, and just kind of like softening into it and giving myself compassion. And then one of the other things that's really important to me is talking to people. Like, so talking to my husband about it or a friend about it or a therapist. Like I find that process of just getting it out is so important for me to like actually talk about what I'm experiencing. Other things that have helped me in this aging process, I think, are, challenging myself. So I'm doing a master's program. I learned to ski a couple years ago. Like I'm trying to do stuff that is just a little more challenging because I think it's a good way to just build confidence and just help me to, I don't know, try new things and like just feel more connected to like what, I don't know, like just feeling like I'm stretching myself a bit, you know what I mean? And not kind of falling into this place of just doing the same stuff that I've always done. I find the challenge to me is almost like an adventure. And I think that that's something that I really value. So that's a better way to phrase it. Yeah. And then having like a lot of boundaries, like I know what my body needs. I know what I need to thrive. And so sometimes I can be a bit rigid, I've been told. But I know like this is the routine I need. And like, if I stray from this, I'm not going to be the best version of myself, you know? And so it can, in some ways it can be a little limiting, but in other ways it's like, I know what I need to thrive. And so making sure that I have that is really important, and setting boundaries around that. So like my bedtime and like my ridiculous bedtime routine and what I need to fall asleep and all of these other things are really important to me.
I love that. Like, I'd love to see if you're comfortable with like actually exploring that a little bit more. Like, cause I feel like that, that comes with aging too. Like we talked in the last episode about how, you know, you find this level of like where it's like, okay, I want comfortable clothes. I want comfortable shoes. You know, you start to really prioritize like your body and your needs a little bit more as you start to get older, because you're being less pulled, right, by external messages. If you're comfortable with talking about, like, do you think that aging has shaped that commitment to your boundaries and to like your nourishment and care of yourself and your body?
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I almost think it's more that I'm just less tolerant to discomfort of having of being like I'm less tolerant to being tired. Like I'm less tolerant to being uncomfortable. And I know some of that is like hormonally related, and I know that some of it is just because because I have a young kid, I'm running a business and I'm in school, like so I do have just like less tolerance for, because I'm already sort of at my brink a lot of the time. So I think that's it. But it is also like I'm less willing to like put other people's needs above my own and sort of sacrifice my what's going to help me feel good to satisfy other people. It's not to say I don't care about other people's needs. Like I really do too much probably still, but I'm also just the type of person who now I'm just a lot more secure being like, you know what, that's not going to work for me. Like I really need to make sure that I'm home at this particular time, or I can't do that. That's a weekday. Like I've got clients the next day. And so whereas before I might feel like from a people pleasing perspective or feeling like I need to like, be there for people, would have sacrificed my own care to do that. So I'm not sure if that's what you were kind of getting at, or what your experience has been with that too.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. And yeah, my experience has been similar. I think it goes along with like we talked about in the last episode of just like you get into this space of like taking care of you, right? And when you're young, I think so much of your decision making can be still impacted by, like you said, wanting to be cool, wanting to be popular, wanting to fit in. I know for me in my younger years, I would say like, 20s and 30s, it was sort of like, oh, if people were going to these spaces or this time or this setting, even if I didn't like it, I would kind of do it because I wanted to like be with those people, right? And so it was kind of like I would go with it, and then I'm uncomfortable or I'm feeling a certain type of way about the environment or, the time of day or whatever. Like there's just so many things now that I'm aware of. And I was just telling actually my sister yesterday that I was like, as I get older, I'm just realizing that like time is life, right? Literally. And you don't have that much life. And so like, I don't want to use up my life hours in ways that I'm uncomfortable, and in doing things that don't feel good for me. So there's more of a priority. I agree with you. Like I have a bedtime routine. It's like, okay, I do this, then this, and this, then this. A lot of it comes from a space of awareness now, like just having a lot of clarity because I've done a lot of work between therapy, body relationship work, like knowing what Ivy needs and then knowing like what my body needs, in order to flourish and to thrive. And back then I don't think I was even connected enough with my body to really get it. Like there's things I can look back and be like, was that bothering me then the whole time? Certain things now it's like, I don't like to be out in the heat for extended amounts of time. It's just like, and I'm thinking, I did that back then. Was I uncomfortable and just sort of overlooking it? Or some things do shift with age, right? Like, it's like, okay, I can't stand the heat like I used to or whatever.
Yeah.
When I know I'm going out on a Saturday, it's like, I'm going to need to pack snacks. I'm going to be hungry. And if I start to get into hangry, it's not going to be a good time. So let me make sure I have the hydration and the snacks that I need, right?
I relate to that so much. The heat thing is like, it's intense now because I actually had this conversation last week with my husband. I was like, I used to be okay with heat, like, but was I? And I think that I was going to ask you this, because I know we're both highly sensitive people, but do you think, I feel like that's intensified as I've gotten older? And I don't know if that's because of the hormonal changes, but like I'm a lot more sensitive to sound, to, external stimulation, to temperature changes, to feelings on my skin. Like it's gone up quite a bit, I would say. And so I don't know if I was blunting it out before, like if I was just, somehow bypassing it with my youthful energy, or if it just is something that like has intensified because of the hormonal changes or aging changes. It's really interesting.
I 100% agree. If there wasn't 1,000%, I would pick that. I've had those thoughts too. And I'm like, has this gotten more like it's just things irritate me more, right? Like just things that I feel like, was this always a problem? Was I just not taking care of myself? Was I not listening? What I came up with was that I think it's like this mixture of things, right? I do believe that the more you listen to your body, the more you hear. I've seen that happen with clients, that when we work on listening to body signals, and when we first start, they're like, I don't hear anything, or my body doesn't say anything to me. And then we work on it and they're like, oh, I noticed this and I noticed that. And then, we work, and some clients I've worked with for over a year. And as we go through the journey, now they're noticing all sorts of things. And they're like, yeah, I noticed that my body wasn't really feeling that. Or even when they get into spaces, it's like, oh, I sort of felt this in my body. I didn't feel comfortable around that person. So I think some of it is more of an awareness, just like I say, tuning out to tune in. So I think that we tune out a lot of the external noise, right? Whereas maybe when we were younger, we were tapped into the external noise because we wanted to please, we wanted to fit in. So that crowded things more and we couldn't hear things. And as we turn the dial down on the external noise, we actually hear the internal messages more clearly. Like that's a very big part of the mix for me. And I think the rest of it is hormonal shifts.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do think that is a factor. But to your point, I love the way that you explained that in terms of the, kind of once you learn to become more aware and turn down that external noise, like you do become more attuned to what actually helps you feel, helps you feel good. And you realize like, oh my God, I really tolerated a lot of stuff that wasn't really serving me. And so it's nice to be able to let that go, even though I'm sure some of my routines drive my husband up the wall, but he's used to dealing with me now. And
yes, my husband's the same. He's like, I know you're an HSP, and I know he says he sees the beauty and the complexity of it, right? He's like, it makes you very sensitive and very this and very that and very caring, and you notice things that other people don't notice. However, it also means that, 1 degree on the thermostat makes a difference to you, or, when you're hungry, you're grumpy, like, or that the certain type of sheets, it's like, I'm like, yeah, it comes with the territory. It's a trade-off.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. We need to do like a whole bedroom comparison in terms of like the sheets, the temperature,
yes, the airflow. There needs to be an airflow.
I've got fan, I've got white noise, I got my sleep mask, I got my satin pillowcase, I got cool air.
It's a whole thing.
It is a whole thing. I have an inflatable body pillow that I bring with me when I travel as well, and a portable fan that I have that's like a little USB fan that I bring anytime I travel. And like my friends just think I'm wacky, but this is what I got to do.
I'm convinced a lot of that is HSP too, because, which I think we talked about this in that episode, but it's been scientifically proven that people which for those who don't know, HSP is highly sensitive persons, that we literally feel sensations on a different level than other people. Like it's not just a theory. So we even see colors brighter, we hear sounds louder, like it's been tested and proven. So that's why things that might not bother other people, bother us in a different way.
Yeah, I'm glad it is biologically true.
There's science behind it.
Yeah. So the last thing I think you and I wanted to talk about was just navigating ableism and this fear of losing abilities. So I think that, a lot of people that I've had conversations with worry about losing their abilities or have started to lose their abilities. And so that, like, how to kind of navigate some of those fears and anxieties and be able to sort of move forward without letting those fears and anxieties like kind of take away from enjoying, this season of life. Like, I know that you have had some health challenges that you talked about. What's helped you navigate those changes and your outlook as a result of those changes?
Yeah, it's been a big learning experience. It's just been a journey of consistently figuring out just what my body needs in a given moment, and lots of patience and compassion, and sort of how I approach it. And even the clients that I work with that are chronically ill, like we talk a lot about self-parenting, and it's just like, okay, would you be like this to a child that, blank, right? And we tend to be more understanding of like, oh, there's a child that they're a toddler, they can only walk so far or so fast. But if it's us, it's sort of like, oh, why can't I keep up? And to return to being that gentle parent to your own body, right? And just we understand having that patience for a child of like they're learning something, right? Their abilities or something they're not able to do, or they can't open something or they can't pick it up. It's like, oh, I'll help you. But when it's us, we just feel this frustration and those things. So it really, for me, was returning to parenting myself.
Yeah.
It was a whole new experience in that. And I'll also, in transparency, admit that it showed me my own level of privilege that I had in regards to health, right, and ability, especially because my chronic illness, I had PCOS, but I also had thyroid disorder, which exacerbated over the past 2 years. And so there were so many things that I've learned that I took for granted. And it was sort of like, there are some people who have never been able to do this and will never be able to do these things. And we associate those things only with age. But a lot of people, it's not just an age thing. It's something that their body just can't do and they've never been able to do. So it's been really helping me to expand, right, my understanding of bodies. And again, we talked about in the last episode, body diversity, bio-individuality, and what feels like aging shifts for some of us is what it's always been for others, right? And not to answer your question, not to diminish or minimize anybody's experiences that they're having with their body shifting, because it is, when your body's shifting, you go through body changes, it is a real experience. It does impact your connection and your relationship with your body. But it also gives some perspective on the fact that, your body, no one's body is good or bad. There's no morality based on what we can and can't do. And if we can release that for ourselves, then we're also able to do that for others, right? And be more empathetic in the experiences that others are having.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that that internalized ableism and this belief that, our worth is in our abilities is something that I absolutely probably need to do more excavation around, and I think that obviously comes because I have been able-bodied my, entire life. And so that's there is that internalized ableism in there. And I think that that's hard work to do because there isn't a lot of diversity in the messaging. Like, I think that oftentimes when we see people talk about aging, again, we have these polar opposites where you see these images of people who are like doing these extraordinary things, who are, 80 plus years old. And then you have these images of people in nursing homes that are just, in a wheelchair staring at a TV. And so it's like that creates this sort of like that reinforces that ableism, right? And how that intersects with ageism. And I think that like we need to hear more stories and see more imagery of just diverse experiences and people talking about it, so that we're not just like putting aging into like one of these two boxes, that it's either this amazing thing that you like power through and you live really long and you're strong, or, you are going to be confined to, a nursing home or something like that, which obviously there's nothing wrong with. And again, a lot of us don't have control over that. But I think that like, if we had more stories and if we had more visibility, it would be helpful in order to unpack some of those belief systems that intersect between the ageism and the ableism.
Yeah, I agree with you on the need for more conversation about it, more representation. A lot of those things get pushed to the margins, right? Which is where we get the whole marginalized bodies thing happening. One thing that really these past 2 years just really shifted things for me was when I had so many things I wasn't able to do while I was, waiting for my thyroid surgery and just navigating through all of that. And my parents were very big caretakers of me. And that shifted my concepts around aging, because you always think of like, oh, I'm this, particular age. So in mainstream thoughts around bodies and body standards, it's you get to a certain age and your parents, health is maybe declining and they need you and you become the caretaker. But when you throw into the mix chronic illness and disability and things like that, and the parent is the one who's actually helping you and they have, more strength than you do, or they're having to do things, it's sort of like, oh, wait, this is totally different than the narrative, like you said, that we've always seen. And that creates space for this expansive concept of bodies, right? The diversity of bodies, right? That like some people can be young and a lot of people are young, right? And their parents are caretakers of them as young adults, right? Or they have limited mobility or, things like that. And the parents might have more than them. There's very much this mainstream concept of like things happen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And these very linear concepts of life and body experiences. And it's so mixed up. It's so different. But I will say that those experiences over the past few years for me really helped me deepen the concept of like worth when it comes to my body, right? That I can allow my parents to, because I wasn't able to drive for like 2 years. So they were driving me to my appointments. When I was going to surgery, they were there for me. My husband was there as well. I'm not excluding him, but we're the same age. But just saying that, they were coming over, like my mom would come over and help me clean the house because I literally could not vacuum. I could not, dust like I normally do and things like that. And so it's just things where you have these preconceived notions. And like you said, it's internalized ableism. It is a form of ableism. And then life comes along and teaches you and expands you and deepens your understanding of bodies and identity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like that's a really important message. And thank you for sharing your story around that. One thing I will share about my own personal experience with that is that was it a year ago? Like a year and a bit ago, I noticed ringing in my ears. So I call it tinnitus, but I think people call it tinnitus. Anyways, I have constant ringing in my ears now. And when the onset of that like terrified me, I was spiraling because I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to hear silence again. And I was in like a really bad headspace for a couple months around it because it was just, like this kind of realization of like, there's this permanent change that's happened to me. And so it like going through that has helped me to like, I really had to like surrender and accept and just be like, this is the way, like, this is your reality now. And, I can like go down Reddit rabbit holes and that really made me panic and stress more about it. Or I can really just be like, okay, I got to adapt and try my best to like just move forward, knowing that this is just a permanent part of my life now. And so I think that was one of the changes. Like that's probably one of the biggest sort of like changes that's happened in my abilities is just like having that change to the way I hear things. Cause there's just a constant ringing now all the time that has helped me to kind of go through that process of like that sort of like shock and like, oh my God, what's happening? And then surrendering and accepting and being like, okay, well, this is just the way that it is. And there's certain like things that I need now. Like I have to wear earplugs when I go to loud places because if I have any more hearing loss, it's going to make it worse. And so, just trying to adapt to that change as well, which was really scary at first.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. So the tools that you talked about earlier, those are things that you used during that time where you went through the initial shock.
Yeah, I think I really spiraled. I don't think I used my tools very well, to be honest with you. I think I went into fix it mode, which I think is really common. I went into like, I need to research this. I need to fix this. I need to like, and then there are certain things I could do, but it's not that bad that I would need to do those things. But I just remember, I think it was actually like on some sort of forum I went on for people with tinnitus. And I was like reading and some guy was just said like, you just need to actually just go out and live your life and try to ignore it as best you can. And then it starts to become part of the background. And I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. So he was like, get off these forums, stop researching it. Like you're causing yourself to spiral more. And so I don't think I used my tools very well in that initial like month. I think I was in fix it mode and I was in like, I'm going to research this. I'm going to try and fix this. And then once I sort of understood that this was just a permanent thing, then I was able to move into acceptance. And if I ever noticed myself sort of panicking about it, then I was more apt to use my tools because I was in a better frame of mind about it. But yeah, it's a lesson. I'm not perfect with my tools.
Yeah. No, I actually love that. Like the candor of that, because I think that we need to understand that more, right? I think that's part of the process. Like even in talking about aging is that you are going to go through that, like those shock moments or those moments of like just discomfort or even grief. That's another conversation. Grief around, losing your youth or maybe losing abilities or a certain identity or whatever you used to see in the mirror, like all those things, right? And that I do think it's important to go through those stages of being, maybe angry, frustrated, sad, grief, so that you can process them, right? Because I think it's kind of bullshitting yourself, which I say I don't bullshit myself. I said I don't bullshit myself or God. Those are the two things I say. It's like, because it's kind of pointless, right? Just be honest and be like, I don't like this. I'm very upset. I'm very whatever. And like, take the time to go through that so that you can move on. But if you like fake it, like, oh no, I'm good. I'm mindful, whatever, then it's, you're just going to be stuck or you're going to come back to it like, more often, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes perfect sense. I think that grief cycle and like being mindful of self-blame, because I think with changes that happen as you age, I think sometimes you can blame yourself. Like you can come back to, I shouldn't have done those things. I shouldn't have done that when I was younger, or I shouldn't have, whatever it is that you're sort of thinking that might have changed the course of your future. But I think a lot of the time it's like we probably didn't, we were probably going to, whatever happened to us was probably going to happen regardless of those choices that we made. And like, even if the choices that you made potentially influenced what you're experiencing, like finding forgiveness in that and knowing that like, well, you probably just did the best you could with the information that you had. And so trying to let go of that self-blame, because that can be a dangerous place to be in too, is beating yourself up for, what changes your body has experienced or what abilities you've potentially lost.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we should wrap this conversation up. I feel like we've talked about everything that we wanted to talk about pretty much. Is there anything that you want to say to close it out?
I just want to say I appreciate having a conversation with you. I feel like we have covered a gamut of things and it's really good material. I look forward to going back and listening to it. And I invite more people who are listening to have these conversations more because like we said, I don't think they're out there enough. So definitely spark it in your spaces, share this conversation with other folks so that we can help people start to feel peaceful and powerful in their aging journey.
Yes, I love that. And so I know we were going to talk about where people can potentially work with us or find any of the free resources that we have. Do you want to list off some of yours first and then I'll list off mine?
You can always just start at ivyfelicia.com for me, I'm sure it'll be in both of our show notes. There you can find, I have an ebook that you can start with if you want to start there. I also have, perhaps by the time you listen to this episode, I have an inclusive and accessible and affirming wellness space. So as a person who's a certified wellness coach, I have now a membership space where we're exploring wellness from this very liberated perspective, right? So what does it look like to take care of our mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual well-being without being led by diet culture and ableism and oppression, right? So we're just reimagining wellness from a new space. So I'm excited about that. You're welcome to come over there and join us.
Amazing. I love it. So I've loved this conversation. And if people want to learn more, you can go to thebodyimagecoach.com. So that's where I have a lot of free resources. I have a 10-day body confidence makeover. I have a podcast with over 300 something episodes now. So there's a lot of resources there and some limited ways to work with me right now because I'm going to be doing private practice for my practicum. But if you are interested in working with me, you can find information on my website, and my email list is the best place to do that too. And then I also teach providers how to support their clients with body image. And so that's all available on my website too. So yeah, I'll link it in the show notes. And it's been so lovely chatting with you. I really loved this conversation. And thank you for everything that you shared today. It was great.
Yeah, thank you for agreeing to do this with me. It's wonderful to look back and reflect on where we've come in our personal journeys and our body relationship, and hopefully it supports other people as well.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ivy. That was another really great conversation. I'm so glad we got to dive into all of those things. You can find the links mentioned at summerinnanen.com/324. Don't forget, if you have the financial means to do so, you can support the show via Ko-fi. That's ko-fi.com/summerinnanen for as little as $5 a month. You can financially support this podcast, keep it on the air, and get a free copy of my mini course, Conquering Negative Body Talk. I think something like that. Something about working through negative thoughts about your body. I can't remember what I titled it. All right. Thank you so much for being here today. I will talk to you next time. Rock on. I'm Summer Innanen, and I want to thank you for listening today. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Summer Innanen. And if you haven't yet, go to Apple Podcasts, search Eat the Rules, and subscribe, rate, and review this show. I would be so grateful. Until next time, rock on.